In the next two episodes of Caleb's Journal, I would like to look at the encounter that Jesus had with the Samaritan woman at the well of Sychar, which is recorded in John 4. Specifically, I want to look at three aspects of the story and see how we can relate these to our own lived experience today in order to reveal the powerful message of hope that this story contains. In this episode, I would like to explore the thirst of the Samaritan woman and why both her husbands and the well water could not give her satisfaction. To do so, I want to address three aspects of the story: the location and its geographical significance, secondly, the water source that the woman was drawing from, and finally, the identity of the husbands and what they represent. This will then provide us with the context to address the topic raised by the Samaritan woman in our next episode, namely, what is the nature of true worship? The land surrounding the well of Sychar features prominently in the history of the ancient nation of Israel. We had the opportunity to visit this area a few years ago. If you were to go there today, you would find yourself in the Palestinian city of Nablus in the West Bank, and see that a large Eastern Orthodox church and monastery has been built over the well. Nearby is the archaeological site of Tel Balata, which is believed to be the location of biblical Shechem. When you look westwards, you will see that you are standing at the base of two mountains, Mount Gerizim to the south and Mount Ebal to the north. So what is so significant about this particular location? The biblical record tells us that three significant events took place here. First, the patriarch Abram stopped here on his journey to the promised land, and it is here that God gave Abram the promise of land. Secondly, Abram's grandson Jacob returned to this same spot just after his name had been changed to Israel. He built an altar here and named it El Elohe Israel, thereby declaring that God was his mighty God. And thirdly, the entire nation of Israel came here under the leadership of Joshua just after entering the promised land to recite the curses for disobedience and the blessings of obedience from the slopes of Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. And at the end of Joshua's life, the nation regathered here again to renew the covenant with their God. These events demonstrate that this location is a place of promise, commitment, and worship. It is a place that declares God's faithfulness. So how does this theme of God's faithfulness connect with the thirst of the Samaritan woman? To find this answer, we first need to take a closer look at the well and what it was that the Samaritan woman was hoping to find there. In our story, Jesus is sitting beside the well because he was weary, and the woman approaches the well because she is thirsty. Thirst is one of the most powerful natural appetites. It symbolizes one's spiritual desire to express righteousness. In order to satisfy her thirst, the woman came to this deep well in order to draw water. This act illustrates two things. Firstly, drawing water from a deep well requires work in order to access it. So the woman is seeking to satisfy her thirst by her work. She is seeking to express righteousness through her effort. The well she was drawing water from was deep, having been dug deep into the earth. As man is formed from the dust of the earth, this could represent that the woman was seeking to satisfy her thirst by relying on her flesh nature. The well was built by the patriarch Jacob, and his bones are buried in this general vicinity. In the biblical narrative, wells are closely related to the making of marriage covenants, whilst bones are symbolic of the law. These three details, that the well was built by Jacob, that wells are places where marriage covenants are initiated, and that Jacob's bones are buried in this general location, all point towards the theme of Old Covenant. This is why Jesus said that whoever drank of the water from the well would be thirsty again. As righteousness, or the satisfaction of thirst, cannot be obtained through man's own labour, but relying on his own strength and flesh nature to give expression to the law. However, by identifying water from another source, Jesus is pointing to a new way, the new covenant. He now offers water from another source, living water that would truly satisfy. When the woman asked Jesus for this living water, he responds by telling her to call her husband. This indicates to me that her ability to access this living water is in some way connected to her marital state. So let's explore this just a little bit. We are told that the woman is descended from Jacob, and as she lives in Samaria, is called a Samaritan. The group of people that we know as Samaritans came into being after 722 BC, when most of the northern tribes of Israel were taken captive by the Assyrian king Shalmaneser and sent into exile. Shalmaneser then resettled the region of Samaria with 5 distinct groups of people, who each retained the worship of their own god. These people intermingled with the few remaining Israelites and became known as the Samaritans. The purpose of this resettlement by King Shalmaneser was to ensure that the nation of Israel could no longer rise up. Samaritans were therefore considered religiously impure by the Judeans. They distorted the worship of the God of Israel by not worshipping him exclusively. Because of this compromised worship, these people could never fulfill the destiny of Israel. They would be forever thirsty, unable to fully express the righteousness and justice of God. We can therefore say that the woman in our story represents the defiled or corrupted nation of Israel. If we identify the Samaritan woman as being represented in this way as the defiled nation of Israel, and her 5 husbands as the 5 groups of people with whom the remaining people of Israel intermingled, who could her 6th man be? The one that she was living with, but was not yet her husband. Could this represent the power of Rome, under which Israel was subject to at the time of the encounter between Jesus and the Samaritan woman? By living with this 6th man, the Samaritan woman was under his protection and provision. However, he is not committed in the sense of being a husband to her, as evidenced by their unmarried state. Once again, leaving the woman unsatisfied and thirsty, unable to give expression to her destiny due to her distorted worship, caused by her looking to other gods for her protection and provision, as illustrated by her relationships. In this episode, I've laid down some groundwork to give some context to the story. We saw how the location where the encounter occurred was a place which demonstrated the faithfulness of God. It was a place of promise, commitment, and worship. By connecting the Samaritan woman's thirst with her quest for righteousness and identifying the well as symbolizing the Old Covenant, we can understand why Jesus said that all who drank from this source would remain unsatisfied. Finally, we looked at the woman and her husbands. We discovered that not only was the source from which she was drawing water unable to satisfy her thirst, but also her own distorted worship, as illustrated by the covenants she had made with other gods. In our next episode, we will explore this story further and address the topic of what constitutes true worship, and how we can apply this story in our own lives today. If you found this video interesting, we have prepared a study guide with more information on this topic. You can download it by clicking on the link in the description box below. Please consider subscribing to our channel, and we will see you again in our next episode.